Hello, third graders. We are here with the last chapter of the Jumbies. Here we go, chapter 44, For Keeps. Corinne and her father filled their pockets with as many oranges and seeds as they could carry and turned to go home. "We'll get lost, Papa," Corinne said, "but we have to try, don't we?" As they stepped towards the trees, a Duan appeared and pointed the way. Pierre stiffened. "I think it's trying to help us, Papa." Still, Pierre's eyes glittered like a rough sea. "We can't be sure," he said. "We have to try," Corinne reminded him. Pierre shifted Corinne to his other side, away from the Jumbie, and together they followed the path. A few steps into the forest, the trees were so close together that they did not know where to go next. Another Duan appeared and pointed the way. As they went, more Jumbies stepped in to show them the way home. Some bowed their heads slightly as Corinne and Pierre passed. Others watched them with wary eyes, but did nothing to stop them from going. One Lagahoo reached out to Corinne with an expression that resembled a smile. Corinne squeezed Pierre's hand tight, and they both stopped in their tracks. The Lagahoo looked down at Corinne's bleeding leg and whispered something. A moment later, a Duan came out from some undergrowth and put something against the cut. Almost instantly, the pain was gone. Pierre bowed his thanks. When Corinne and her father finally emerged on the road, a crowd of villagers stood silent before them. The witch stepped forward. Drew and the brothers stepped forward too. The three of them were barely recognizable. Bauki and Malik were dressed in clean, untorn clothes and had somehow managed to scrub the color of mud from their hair and skin. It turned out that they were more like golden brown than mud red. "And Drew!" Corinne walked with uncertainty toward her friend. Drew wore a sari, but her braids were gone, and her short, shaggy hair made her look like a fierce little boy. "What happened?" Corinne asked. "I set a fire to distract the Jumbies," Drew said. "I cleared the land and everything, but it didn't go the way I planned." Her hands touched her hair and tried to twirl the ends, but there was not much there. She dropped them to her sides. I was lucky the rain came. It could have been worse." "You helped me?" Drew nodded, and Corinne could not resist giving her friend a hug. "And they got a father," Drew said about the boys. "What father? Who said anything about having a father?" Bauki asked. "You think I didn't see you coming out of the baker's house this morning?" Drew asked. "He fed us. We were tired, so we stayed. It was a long night." "If it wasn't for the ears, I might not have recognized you," Corinne said to Malik. Then she turned to Bauki. "So it's back to the cave tonight?" she asked with a smirk. Malik winced. "We are not the baker's children. He is not taking care of us," Bauki said. "He's been taking care of you for years," Corinne said. "Every night you find food in his bakery for your dinner. Did you think it was a coincidence?" Bauki and Malik took a sheepish glance over at Hugo. The big man grinned and shifted from one leg to the other like someone caught in a small lie. The witch hobbled over and pointed at Bauki with her thumb. "I told you before that wasn't very smart." She snorted and searched Corinne's eyes. "Well, how did the stone work?" "It wasn't the stone at all. It was the seed inside it. Just like you showed me. Watch." She held a seed in her hand and put it close to her lips. "Grow." Almost at once the seed rocked and split, and a tiny green shoot sprouted up. The witch smiled. "Yes, that is the way," she whispered to herself. Bauki, Malik, and Drew looked on, astonished. Corinne handed the sapling to Malik. "But is she gone?" Bauki asked. Corinne nodded. "She's gone." "What about the other ones?" Drew asked. "They're still here." Corinne looked up at her papa. "But she's not controlling them anymore," Corinne said. "And they belong to the island. They've been here longer than we have." Pierre nodded, and the white witch smiled at Corinne's words, but a grumble rose from almost everyone else. "They will come out again," Victor said. "They took my child," shouted a woman. "They killed my husband," said another. "But what about what she did to your father?" Drew asked. "What about the people we lost?" "That was all Severin," Corinne said. "Just now the Jumbies helped us get out of the forest. They helped heal my cut. She pulled away the patch of leaves on her leg to show a wound that looked nearly healed. Do you see? We have to find a way to live together. There was more grumbling. Someone picked up a broken branch and smacked it against the palm of his hand. I'm not going to live here while they still live here, he said. It was Lawrence's father. Lawrence stood beside him with a fierce scowl as if he was determined to fight. Then you can take your chances in the sea, said the witch. The faces in the crowd turned hard. Corinne looked at her father to see if he knew what to do. He squeezed her hand gently in his. It gave her courage. This island was theirs before we ever knew anything about it, Corinne said in a strong voice. The witch nodded in agreement. But now we're all here together. It's our home, all of ours. They took my friend, Drew said, and we have taken their homes, Corinne answered. Every time we cut down a tree to plant crops, they get pushed back. Drew bit her lip. Malik stepped forward with the orange sapling in his hand. He dug a little hole in the ground by the forest and planted it. Then he looked at Corinne. Grow, he whispered. Corinne and Drew looked at Malik with shock. I don't know why you're so surprised, Bauki said. I told you, he talks plenty. Corinne took the orange seeds from her pockets and began to push them into the ground. The witch took some of the seeds and helped. Pierre handed more seeds to Drew, the brothers, and a few others, and they all planted rows of orange trees at the edge of the forest. Corinne held her hand out to the witch and said, It's a lot of seeds. I don't think I can grow all of them on my own. The witch took Corinne's hand with her good one. I can help with this, she said. Grow, the half-Jumbies said together. The seeds began to sprout. A few people in the crowd gasped. The orange trees curved upwards. They hardened and turned brown as they grew into each other and formed a solid wall that reached far into the sky. The trees looked beautiful, but more than that, they smelled delicious. The people in the village couldn't resist picking the fruit and eating it on the spot. Only Drew stayed back. This isn't going to stop them, she said. Her face was furrowed with worry. It's not to keep them in, Corinne said. It's to keep us out. We've been taking their land. They deserve to survive too. The sight of the orange trees barring the way jogged Corinne's memory. The jumbie weed on my house, she cried. It's dead, Bauki said. We went to see this morning, but it's going to take a lot of cleaning up. If that kind of magic can fall, then so can this, Drew protested. They will come after us. The only time they ever came after us was when we disturbed them, Corinne said. And when Severin started the war, you even said you had never seen them before. Drew said, and when those trees are gone, then what? Maybe by that time we will have found a way to live together. Corinne hugged Drew. I'm sorry about your friend, she said. Drew wiped a tear from her cheek. I'm sorry I said I wished I had never met you. I blamed you for what happened to Alan. I thought you were just like them. I thought you would turn against us and everything would just get worse and worse. That's the thing, Drew. There is no us and them. And anyway, some good things happened. Corinne reminded Drew, look at these two. She gestured at Bauki and Malik in their clean clothes and grinned. Corinne reached out to both of them for a hug. Hold on now, we just got cleaned up. You look like you've been sleeping in mud, Bauki said. And anyway, we don't hug girls. Malik made a firm nod. His curly hair bounced around him. Corinne laughed. Some in the crowd looked with wonder at the wall of orange trees, and others looked at Corinne with suspicion. The pride that Corinne had felt began to fade as some people backed away and the others whispered behind their hands. Pierre put his hand on his daughter's shoulder and squeezed. Corinne felt her chest tighten. She whispered to the witch, Is that what you meant? Is this what I lose? The witch sneered and she yelled out, Her oranges taste sweet though, eh? None of you are putting them down. The crowd mumbled to themselves and began to disperse, most with some oranges clutched to their chest. Corinne didn't watch them go. Her eyes stayed on Drew, who had remained rooted in the spot, looking uncertain. Are you going too? Corinne asked. Drew reached into her waist and untucked part of her sari, then unrolled it to reveal the wax form of Kareen's mama. Even in the daytime, it radiated light from deep inside. Kareen's heart leapt as she took the statue. "How did you fix this?" Drew asked. Drew shrugged. "Just know I'll always be there to help you." She blew a kiss towards Kareen and skipped off to her village. Kareen sighed with relief. The brothers nodded to Kareen and followed the baker, walking carefully in their clean clothes and minding all the muddy puddles from the morning's rain. Kareen watched as they steered clear of a large one, but missed seeing a little frog that sat squat in the middle of the road. Balki tripped over the quiet little frog and grabbed Malik to catch his balance. Both brothers fell smack into the very puddle they had been avoiding. They sat up, sputtering, their new clothes completely covered in mud. Everyone laughed, even the baker, who grabbed the backs of the boys' shirts and pulled them out in one easy lift. As Kareen wiped tears of laughter from her eyes, she noticed the little frog hop away. Somehow it looked very familiar. With a broad smile, Kareen showed her father the wax statue. Pierre nodded and gave her his warm, rough hand to hold. Meanwhile, in the sea, oranges bobbed up and down. Waves pushed hundreds of them onto the shore. They scraped against rocks at the bottom of the surf, which bruised their skin and released their smell. The sharp, sweet scent of oranges filled the air all over the island. Pierre smelled them and his face turned worried. "The sea doesn't keep anything," he said. Kareen squeezed his hand. "It kept Grand Pierre," she said. "Maybe some things stay in the sea. And you and I stay where we belong, together." Pierre managed a smile. "Let's go home, Papa," Kareen said. "We have Jumbie weed to clean up. It's too bad I can't make things ungrow." "Can't you?" he asked. The two of them looked at each other, wondering. Then they broke into broad smiles and headed off towards their house. All right, there you have it. There is the Jumbies. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye, you guys.